that, we'll go on to our next one. I guess is this discussions concerning elements of possible regulation requirements to permit inference as provided by
Well,
California.
actually,
No,
we have two more presentations. Two more presentations before we get to that.
Oops.
We have Intelleflex, I think, first.
It's not down here.
I didn't list people. I didn't know who was gonna come.
Intelleflex.
Which is on. Can we just start it? This one is, there's one more question. Let's do slide. Slideshow and then from the beginning. There we go. This one here? Yeah, okay.
And please, if you can identify yourselves, and then we.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, and we want to thank the board for allowing us time to come and present to you. I'm Peter Norton. I work with a company called Intelleflex. I'm going to do a little bit more detailed introduction as we go through, but I'll just pass it to the other two if that's okay for now.
Hi, my name is Scott Pugh. I'm Director of Strategic Development at Verify Brand.
And my name is Kaylee Parkinson, National Sales Manager for Technology Services with Rarick Pacific Company.
Thank you.
Thank you again. So I'm going to start the presentation and the discussion topics and the introduction. At the last California Board of Pharmacy meeting, the question was raised about new technologies. I also heard it raised here again today, and why a California-based company had not come forward with possibly a solution and a way that we can go forward to that December 31st, 2014 readiness. And I say December 2014 because I think that's when everybody has to be ready. So we are a partnership of 3 established technology companies. We want to provide an overview of a consolidated solution using RFID and an enterprise serialization, traceability, regulatory messaging platform, plus a plastic pallet and tow returnable item solution. So joined together, the 3 of them make one consolidated solution. We believe that we can offer with this solution an integrated solution, again, which provides California and international traceability compliance and also offers the greatest degree of supply chain visibility and security and is less impact on a company's current business processes. So just to go a little bit into our background, which I think is important so you know why we're here. Peter Norton, as I said, is my name. I was originally, I've actually worked with GSK and Genzyme. I think a lot of the people here probably got associated with me when I was at Genzyme as the program manager for their serialization and e-pedigree programs, during which time we actually implemented serialized tracking for 5 of our major product lines, including tracking through to a major 3PL. Now that was in the time frame from 2007 to 2009-10. We only got down as far as the 3PL because at that point nobody else was actually able to go further. I'm sure some of the companies were, but we never got it beyond the 3PL. And in fact, it was a major investment for Genzyme. It was currently, I think, the last one, not currently, but when we last did the summary, it was like a $17 million initiative.
So just a little bit more detail about myself. As I mentioned, I'm Director of Strategic Development at Verify Brand. At Verify Brand, I work in the capacity of a solution architect, helping design and implement serialization and traceability solutions for our customers. Previous to Verify Brand, I was 8.5 years at Accenture, and for a number of those years was a technical lead at Accenture, leading a number of pharmaceutical serialization projects.
And again, my name is Kaylee Parkinson, and I probably represent the least sexy of the 3 companies here. We make the things that get things from point A to point B, ideally the reusable transport packages. What we have been doing over the last 7 years is building these technologies that are being on offer into those packages themselves so that we can more sustainably, more efficiently, and more cost effectively bring those solutions to the marketplace.
So a little bit more about the companies. Intelleflex was, some of you may have heard of Intelleflex as a RFID battery-assisted passive tag provider. In fact, we started in 2003. It was focused on FDA markets. We are extremely well known in the food chain industry, just getting into the pharmaceutical where we have a couple of pilots running right now. There's 63 patents that we filed. 14 of these have been issued. We're standards-based, ISO and EPC global, able to handle tough tasks, and the reason is because being a battery-assisted passive tag, we don't actually transmit, we only send data when we're asked to send data. But considering the fact that we also have a battery on board, we have a 60K of memory in the tag. So we can store things like temperature data, which I heard earlier. We can store serial numbers. We can store waypoints, so we know where there was a change of custody. We can store all those things. And it's a significantly lower cost than an active RFID tag. The battery life is over 2 years. Shelf life is over 10 years. And the other good thing is because we don't transmit, we are FAA compliant. So we only send data when we're requested to send data.
And some additional background about Verify brand. The company was started in 2004 with a sole and strict focus on serialization and traceability, and that remains our sole focus to this day. We're not part of a larger organization. We're 100% dedicated to serialization and traceability. Our customer base spans across a number of industries, including high tech and electronics, high value consumer goods, and life sciences. It includes 4 Fortune 50 companies. We primarily deliver our software platform as a SaaS offering, which means that Verify brand manages and maintains and hosts the IT infrastructure and application. The most important point to make is the concept of a cross supply chain traceability solution is not new. And in fact, the Verify brand solution has been deployed to do just this across many industries. And a specific notice has been done to do this, still leveraging the same GS1 standards that most pharmaceutical companies are implementing as part of their traceability solutions. With this experience, our software is well established and is truly being used all over the world. As of last check, our platform services are being used in nearly 80 countries.
And we at Rare Pacific Company are the grandfather of the group as well. We're coming up on our 100th anniversary this coming year. We're a 4th generation family owned and operated U.S. manufacturer. All of our products sold in this country are made in this country. We were founded and headquartered here in Los Angeles. We have production design facilities in 9 production sites across the U.S. and 8 service centers where we return transport items, and on-site service centers at 35 separate retail distribution centers.
So it is our belief that when we look at the serialization, track and trace, and e-pedigree, that what is needed or the need exists for an accurate and efficient aggregation of the individual shipment data into a single e-pedigree to document each change of ownership, which I think most people here know. But e-pedigree ownership and transfer information to be available for a large number of regulatory formats based upon local legislation. Focus areas are as California deadlines of 2015, 2016 for e-pedigree and individual unit serialization approach. Drug companies, we hope, are starting to seek solutions for unit serial number tracking and for efficient tracking of the case and pallet level with unique identification. GS1 standard 2D barcode, we've heard a lot about this, is an obvious choice, and I wouldn't argue with this at the moment, for the unit level serialization. But RFID, we believe, is poised to be the preferred choice for case and pallet level, primarily in the case of the Intelleflex product, because of all the other data that it can store, including the cold chain data. RFID technology combined with the reusable packaging assets like RERIC and the overarching traceability software platform, creates an achievable solution for the California e-pedigree compliance, while also providing opportunities for a positive ROI for people using this. So the goals of what we're looking to do in our solution is aid towards anti-counterfeiting and reducing diversion of high-value drugs and biologics, provides an efficient method of quality data capture and content monitoring, being monitoring the condition within the carton. The one good thing about the RFID BAP, battery-assisted passive tags, is that when you're doing cold chain monitoring, that you don't have to open the carton. Our XC3 technology allows you to read that temperature data right through the carton. It would also read any other data that's stored in that tag within the carton. Flexibility, any system these days, and we heard this earlier, and I think it was one of the board's questions, was flexibility to meet changes to the regulations and application upgrades. Integration as part of the overall solution for any company's anti-counterfeiting and security of the drug supply chain. The added value, as I mentioned earlier, with the battery-assisted passive tag, is that you can keep a chain of custody record as well as checking that tag memory securely, because every time that we log in, we can set a waypoint. We can also go in through authentication codes to know who actually went into that tag and looked at the data or wrote to that tag or retrieved the data. In addition to this, I heard a little bit earlier about tracking data in other methods, and I think at the board's meeting last time there was a lengthy discussion about using ASNs for closed loop. We can also contain in that tag the advanced ship notice or the 856 record, so as well as compared to the EPCIS and an e-pedigree at each stage of the supply chain. So you can further check that with a manifest or with a delivery note or whatever, and you don't even have to open the carton in most cases if you want to check in fact all cases if you want to check the condition. So talking about RFID as a solution, I know we want to talk about new solutions, but RFID has been around for a long time, and it has a unique champion, I think. When the FDA first started to move forward with recommendations on serializing and providing unique identifiers, stated in 2004 in one of their bulletins, we believe that the use of RFID technology is critical to ensuring the long-term safety and integrity of the US drug supply. Back in, later on rather, in 2007, which still was quite a while ago, furthermore in our report, Combating Counterfeit Drugs, we stated that we expect RFID technology to be in widespread commercial use in 2007. Well, you know, we're getting close to 2013, and maybe it needs another look. So RFID has a champion. Many of the companies I've heard of, and I'm working with a few, that provide anti-counterfeiting and track and trace applications are actually starting to move forward with testing of RFID solutions for that downstream tracking and reporting of drug movements and change of ownership events. So we are standards-based, Class 3 RFID, and how does this perform better than barcode? Well, it's secure. Barcodes, I think I heard somebody say that you can in fact duplicate them. In addition to that, on a pallet or on a case, they can get scuffed, and you can actually lose the data. I've seen that happen. And additionally, with a 2D barcode, you have to actually be face-on to read it. With an RFID tag, you can be within the vicinity of 25, 30 feet and still able to read that tag. Inference to the item level with serial numbers can be stored in the case or the pallet tag. Local on-demand e-pedigree with or without the need for cloud database access. We also offer a cloud database solution which actually tracks the tag data from the reader. And readers placed at strategic points can publish standards data to local applications or cloud data services for access by the trading partners. Basically what that means, wherever you base your readers, you can pick up a waypoint on that drug as it goes through the supply chain, which can be sent to a cloud database service or an overarching service, so anybody in the supply chain can pick up the last point where that drug was actually delivered, has a change of ownership, even right down to the pharmacy by logging in through a secure connection to a web interface. So I'm now going to pass it over to Scott, that's going to talk about the overarching solution.
Thanks, Peter. So, what Peter was really describing with the Intelleflex RFID solutions is the enabling technology that allows you to capture what I would consider to be richer data, meaning data more often and a broader set of data that can be captured. That's a key point as we now kind of turn our focus towards the application layer as part of this solution, because we at Verify Brand feel that data is in fact our strongest weapon to providing stronger supply chain security and visibility. When you take this data perspective, for us it really starts down at the most basic level, which in fact is the unique identifier applied to these products themselves. Verify Brand strongly recommends to those responsible for serializing product as well as regulatory bodies involved to consider the use of randomized serial numbers rather than sequential numbers. And the reason for this is quite simple. A counterfeiter with even a single product in hand that has a sequential number on it has a very high probability of being able to create other products that have quote-unquote valid UIDs associated to them. With randomized UIDs, this simply is not possible at all. So again, our position is that we feel those responsible for serializing and even the regulatory bodies involved should strongly encourage and consider the use of randomized serial numbers. Staying with that data perspective, then the next step is to try and determine and develop tools and services that can, again, increase both the amount of data being captured and utilized as part of a traceability solution, as well as a broader range of data sets that can be integrated into a traceability solution. And that's exactly how our platform is positioned at Verify Brand. We want to provide tools, which we'll go through in a future slide, such as our mobile platforms and applications, things like integration with Intelleflex RFID solutions, providing these tools to make this data capture easier really at any point in the supply chain, as well as look to utilize data sets that already exist out there, such as integration directly with logistic carriers, carriers that are already capturing information about the movement of products between locations, and pulling those data sets into the Verify Brand platform. So as I had stated, Verify Brand views the Intelleflex RFID solution as an opportunity to both increase the amount of data capture as well as broaden the data sets that can be captured through the use of the Intelleflex RFID tags. And what this allows us to do when combined is really operate in a number of different models. We can operate as that overarching, more centralized data repository where different supply chain participants are submitting event information to our repository, and additionally pull in the information that's being captured by the Intelleflex RFID tags and data services. But we can also just as easily operate in a more distributed model, leveraging the Verify Brand message management service, which has the ability to pull data from distributed local track and trace repositories, pull this data together, combine that again with the data that's being captured by the RFID, Intelleflex RFID solutions, and be able to generate outbound messaging and reporting such as an e-pedigree document. So the final piece, though, is to realize that really what we've been discussing here today is really just a subset of what a total traceability solution should be able to offer. We've talked about the ability to generate randomized unique codes that ultimately get applied to product. We've talked about having a centralized data repository where event information can be stored. We've had, in some ways, have touched on authentication tools, and I think to your point, Virginia, a key point of the Verify Brand platform is that we tend to operate more using mobile apps instead of a QR-based approach, simply for the fact that you brought up that our mobile apps can do more than just authenticate product, but can actually provide context for other types of events that a particular supply chain participant might want to capture using a mobile tool. We've obviously touched on in great length the enhanced tracking components of our platform, which is where the RFID, the Intelleflex RFID solution comes into play, as well as the ability to integrate with logistics carriers to pull information from their systems as they're tracking shipments within their domain. And then the final piece is now let's turn around and be able to actually use that data. And we've heard a number of times the ability to do recalls, which falls under our reverse logistics component. We have the capability within our platform to not only enable supply chain participants to initiate and track the progress of recalls, but from an investigatory standpoint, determine where the potential root cause of a recall might have been based on the track and trace information that we have stored within our system. So that's an area where we can now leverage this greater set of data that we've been able to pull into our platform, turn it around, and use it in ways to actually provide value back to the constituents, such as by helping with recall management.
I've come here today with these gentlemen here really with an eye towards implementation and an eye towards some of the practical measures of what it would mean to a supply chain or to a manufacturer or distributor to actually put a solution such as what we've been describing in place. We manufacture reusable transport items. Most, if not all, of your pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors use some of these platforms. What we're talking about today is investing in these platforms to leverage something that already exists. So what that leveraging does is allows us to lower the cost of application of this solution. A reusable transport item, by definition, is a safer and less costly alternative to a one-way package. Traditionally, many of our manufacturers are using what is a very expensive one-way packaging tool. Because of the sensitivity of the products that are carried on it through a pharmaceutical or medical supply chain, they need to guarantee a very high level of sanitation, which requires a much more expensive item. Unfortunately, as we have seen over the last several years, there still are risks to these traditional one-way packages. By implementing a plastic returnable item, we can lower these risks inherently by providing a more sanitary transport option, and more importantly, can save the high dollar expenditure that these companies are incurring every year. A small or reasonably small manufacturer can incur one-way transportation costs to the tune of millions of dollars a year. Larger manufacturers can be in the tens of millions of dollars a year on recurring costs to just get their products from point A to point B. Additionally, they are incurring a much greater carbon impact on the environment. By utilizing a reusable asset, we can do twofold. We can reduce that carbon footprint, and we can save those companies money to the tune that the investment in this reusable item can actually offset the implementation of the intelligence offering that goes with it. These platforms will last years and can be reused over and over again to justify the investment. The key to any returnable packaging offering is the ability to get it back and reuse it. And in the interest of offering a holistic solution to this board as a possibility or potential solution to this issue, we do offer a return and reuse service for those who are unwilling or unable to do it themselves. We've worked in other industries such as food and produce to develop standards that guarantee the cleanliness and safety of those products for reuse, and at this point could actually also offer the service of wiping clean the tags for reuse at the beginning of the supply chain. As Peter had illustrated before, what we wanted to do was just sort of outline what this would look like as we deliver the intelligent platform, or the smart pallet, if you will, to the manufacturer. That pallet can then be distributed either upstream to materials processors for use in the creation of the product, or it can be held for distribution to the various warehouses and distribution centers and wholesalers downstream from the manufacturing point. Each of these tags can be used as a license plate number within an existing warehouse management system. They can be used to generate or hold the advanced shipment notification, which as it moves to that supply chain can be read by the receiver and documented at that waypoint, as Peter illustrated earlier, so that that information can securely be transferred along with the product and good. Once that product and good has been received, it can either be deaggregated and subtracted from for further shipment down the supply chain, or added to at that point as pallets are repackaged and moved downstream, or it can be wiped clean at that point and returned to the point of origin for reuse.
Thank you. So why do we believe that this partnership solution is a viable option? It provides a high level of integrity and quality of data, plus it's got improved safety and sustainability built within the solution. We have improved compliance tracking for the fact that we have the overarching database and we have the data that can be collected within the tag. And we have improved data security because all the data that's stored in those tags, you actually have to have a secure way of logging in and changing it. Whether that's set with the reader, a fixed reader, a hand reader, you actually have to have a secure way of logging in. So just quickly, some summary of the overall benefits and value proposition. The Intelleflex RFID tags and readers provide the foundation for the enhanced supply chain traceability. Intelleflex solutions enable the greater storage tied to cartons and pallet, data storage rather, and are capable of monitoring temperature and other environment variables. Additionally, we have a ZEST database which actually links in with the tags and with the cellular reader, so we can actually send that data automatically to the cloud as soon as it passes the reader. Returnable packaging assets from Rurik Pacific, combined with the RFID technology, provide a reusable solution that streamlines product transport. And the reliable, safe, and sanitary reverse logistics services provide increased supply chain asset utilization with less risk on an environmentally friendly, sustainable platform. These actually, as we call them, smart pallets, do in fact have the RFID tag built within the pallet. So you can reuse it, reset it, and they are reusable up to a period of 2 years or more. And verified brand serialization and traceability solutions are designed to leverage a broader set of supply chain data, including track and trace events, logistic carrier data, and the RFID sensor monitoring that feeds to provide complete supply chain visibility and security. And that's the end of our 30 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
I guess I have a couple questions as well. You stated earlier that RFIDs send data only when requested. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So someone who has a reader couldn't walk by the pallet and say, okay, this is Oxy or whatever.
No, there's two forms of RFID. One is active and one is passive. On the active tags, they're actually beaconing, or what's called beaconing. You probably know, sending data all the time. On the active tags, on the passive tags, they only transmit data when a reader interrogates them or when a reader sees them. But you can actually put logic within the reader that says, if I've read this tag before, don't read it again. Or read it automatically when the tag comes in the door. Set a waypoint, or you can set a waypoint and store the data. You can do a number of things based upon how you set the logic up. But generally, a handheld reader will only read the tags where you push the button to say, I want to do an inventory. There's also a Geiger counter application which allows you to go and select specific tags. But on a fixed reader, generally it's set up that when I see a tag and it comes within the range of my antenna, then I read it.
Because you can see where I'm going with this is because there are, cell phones used to be able to be cloned by just sitting by near it, and you can catch the information and clone their phone number. You have some of these charge cards have embedded chips that instead of having to swipe it, you just should wave your chip. So, and there's ways to clone that card too by just having a proximity reader on a computer, and they can tell, oh, you have a chase card with this number, and that's your expiration date. We want to make sure is that if the system is a plausible system, is that somebody who doesn't have intelligence to just read the information of that RFID, replicate it and put it on another pallet, then it kind of shoots the integrity down.
Okay, I understand. On these particular tags, the data that's stored in the tag, if you read it with any other reader and it's not an XC3 reader from Intelleflex, you will not be able to download that data. You will be able to read what the tag number is, but you will not be able to get access to secure access to that data, whether that's reading the cold chain information or reading any of the serial data stored within the tag.
And that kind of piggybacks to the next question is, at that point, that chip, and you're proposing that it's probably be used on just the larger case units, not
Cases or
smaller.
pallets.
Okay, that the case has RFID, has all the data that's supposedly, you have your pallet, you have 144 cases, it has that data in the chip, and in those 140 cases, there might be 12 units per case, so that RFID chip has basically the whole history of what's in there. Once that's delivered, you decommission that RFID, that goes out, and then out you're relying on 2D barcodes or whatever, another system to take it there forward.
Exactly. As I said, the tag will have the ability to store 60K of data. It can store aggregated serial numbers from a case, and that would be the tag to go with that case. That particular tag can then have a unique serial number, which is aggregated again to be the pallet, the standard parent-child relationship. So you can either decommission a case and note that on the pallet through the EPCIS, or you can decommission the pallet completely and then break the cases apart as you need to.
So it's kind of like is a hybrid system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have SOPs on your process as well?
We have SOPs on our processes for manufacturing, but not for this particular system. I'm not sure whether you have any SOPs.
Yeah, it's probably along the same lines. We have SOPs around our software development practices. The Verified brand solution was actually developed primarily as a result of being a customer or having a Johnson & Johnson, a division of Johnson & Johnson as a customer back in 2004. So the platform was actually developed with, FDA validation and compliance squarely in mind.
Okay, because I would also like to offer that it's the same with HPS, provide comment to Jen.
Sure.
Well, I guess Ross, thank you.
Hopefully this doesn't appear to be a dumb question, but on the readers, two questions regarding the readers. Is there any type of passcode that you would enter? And in other words, I have a reader, he has a reader. Would there be a passcode that I would enter if I'm the one reading it?
You can select particular codes for a reader, or you can actually define that I'm looking for particular tags on the reader. So you can do either way. But generally, the way that passive RID is set up, that when it sees a tag, unless it's told not to, it will read that tag. That has a lot of advantages. I heard on some of the other examples with the pilots, for example, that you need somebody to actually go in and 2D read the barcode. Everybody knows that when you have human intervention, there's always reasons for things to possibly go wrong. When you're using RFID and you're using a fixed reader, there is no human intervention. When that package or that carton or that pallet comes through the door, when the reader sees it, based upon what the description is within the reader, it will actually either read it and send the data. One pilot we're doing is really only just to set waypoints to prove that we can track products through the supply chain. That reader is being told, when you see this tag, read it and set a waypoint, but don't download any of the other data. I don't need to know it at this point. So there's no human intervention. The truck comes in, the pallet comes off, it reads that tag, it puts that waypoint to say, I know I read this tag at this date and time, and it was at this location, because that's where I'm located. That data can be sent to the ZEST database, and in the ZEST database, I can log in anywhere and find out where that tag was last seen.
Kind of like FedEx thing.
Another question. Approximately how much is what is the cost for a reader, an average cost?
And I'm just giving you some, on the record here, some costs that actually I understand from, because I don't sell, but the tag itself is $27 for the tag that actually does the tracking of cold chain and also the serial numbers and everything else. If you wanted just a tag to put on a pallet or a case, I believe they go somewhere between $8 and $10. And the reader, handheld readers with the XC3 technology are not cheap. They go for close to $5K. Readers that are fixed, if you want the non-cellular, it's around about $1,700, $1,800 without the antennas, which go about $200 each. And the one that's the cellular-based reader, which actually transmits to the cloud through a cell network, that one goes for about $1,900. Yeah, that's right.
You know, with regard to the cost of the implementation of this, of any system really, one of the unique pieces about the combined offering here is that, as I alluded to before, the cost of these packages that are being incurred by these companies every year is to the tune of millions of dollars every year on a one-way item. So adding something like these tags that are for $8, $10, $27 to that, and then having them be lost or otherwise useless after a single trip is an untenable cost. By building them into a reusable platform, we're actually able to significantly reduce that cost and mitigate the costs of implementation through the reuse of that package. As a side benefit to all this other information that we're getting that's very, very important to the Board of Pharmacy, you actually have a much more robust asset management opportunity. Many of these companies are spending $27 to $30 per trip for a single pallet. The pallets that would be enabled with these would be under, you know, add in the most expensive potential tag, they'd be still, and the most expensive pallet they could possibly ride on, they'd be a $100 purchase price. A reasonable velocity supply chain turns a pallet of that size 91 times a year. So you can start to see the magnitude of cost savings that are associated with a really robustly managed asset program, and a solution like this that can be implemented, I'm not going to say at no cost, but at a significant reduction in cost to all the stakeholders.
So my actually question is related to that, because you were referring to reusing those RFID tags.
Mm-hmm.
So who actually owns that RFID tag? Meaning, if it's reusable, are you the one?
Typically, the manufacturer would own the RFID tag. They would purchase the enabled platform, and it doesn't have to be a pallet. It could be a bulk bin. It could be a number of any transport item. But typically, the manufacturer would purchase that. There are opportunities for certainly pooled solutions in other areas where upstream providers of raw materials that are supplying multiple pharmaceutical companies could own a pool of these intelligence-enabled platforms and then share that cost. But typically, the manufacturer owns the asset.
So if you were talking about reusing these RFID tags as well, and then what's the life of that?
The useful life of the RFID tag is approximately 2 years through a supply chain like this one. Or Peter, you can answer.
The tag that does the temperature monitoring, because it actually has more storage of data to do, and it's actually doing a little bit more, that lasts for up to 2 years or over 2 years. And as far as the other question about retention of data, once that battery does deplete, it's not returnable because the item is actually encased so it can be dropped in bad conditions. But you can actually retrieve that data for up to 10 years because it's passive. So it's just going in with the reader and getting the data. As far as the smaller tags that don't do temperature or other condition monitoring, the battery on those lasts up to 5 years, and it's reusable for that period of time.
I have a follow-up question to that. With these tags, since they have a battery life, so to speak, before they are adhere to the product or the pallet, is there a means for you to actually test the battery life to make sure that is going to sustain itself?
When you can't actually go in and see how much battery life's left, but what will happen when you go in and read it, you have a user interface through a laptop or something for the fixed reader, and built right into the hand reader is a user interface. And it will tell you on there how much battery life is left in a red and a green. But you can't actually interrogate it and look at the tag and say, okay, you've got 10 weeks left or whatever. Although we do say 2 years and 5 years, depends on the number of turns and the number of times you reprogram it. That is really a minimum life that you would have on it, but the one that we stand by is our guarantee.
I have one question real quick. Okay, on let's say you have a case RFID, or you could have, even if you put it into like a pallet.
Uh-huh.
Can you have mixed information in there from different drug types? So can you have a mixed pallet? You have drug A, drug C, drug E, of different types. Would that data inputted into that RFID?
There is enough data, I was asked that question once before, there is enough data on the tag that you can identify different drug code items. So you can actually have different items on the pallet and identify them, just like you would if you sent out an ASN where you could say these are serialized, these are not, and what I'm sending. It would be very similar within the pallet tag.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Kristen.
I just had a question about whether the RFID technology is applicable to all drug products or whether there's limitations with respect to things like biologics.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
There was a report that the PDA put out, Parenteral Drug Association, that was actually conducted by Dr. J.P. Amond, and I believe there was 8 or 10 drug companies that got involved with their biologic products, and about 80 different products that were tested. The main concern was related to heat initially, and then in addition to that, what kind of protocol structure will be affected in the drug. They found that over a period of testing that there was no appreciable change in the drug, the quality or anything. In fact, you guys probably have access to it, but that's a report that can be downloaded from the PDA. We also have a copy of a write-up of that, which we actually have on the Intelleflex site under the pharmaceutical section.
Couple of questions. I'm trying to understand the reason that you've elected to embed so much of the hierarchical information in the tag itself, as opposed to just making that a reference point that you would then use to access that data in a database. Is that because you want to be able to enable access to that data when you don't have cloud access? Is that the main reason? And what's the perceived utility of doing it that way versus any disadvantages you might get?
I guess it's really optional which way you go.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we did that is because we suggested that is to create a closed loop system. If people do not have access through other ways, or they're still implemented systems, but there's no way why, there's no reason why you shouldn't use it as a pure reference device, and then just send that to the database, whether it's the ZEST or the overarching one, to say this is where the drug was last change of ownership occurred. You could make it very simple, but we just believe that when you have 60K of memory on that tag, that there's other options that you can do to close the loop and make sure you've got all bases covered.
And
Did you want to?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to add. I think the key point there is to make sure this is being framed that this is not an either-or scenario. It's not tag on data or tag in a repository. This would be an additional set of data that can be used to validate products at points along the supply chain.
And, a lot of the advantages that you identified to RFID at the case and pallet level would theoretically apply to RFID at the unit level. You are not making the recommendation for unit level. I don't know if that's because you believe it's cost prohibitive, or if it's because you believe the industry just won't do it, or if it's because of this particular partnership you have with RARIG that you are recommending what they can provide.
That's an excellent point. I do know that one of the divisions of Genzyme is actually using RFID at the unit level, but it's the printed RFID from Zebra Corporation, and just the very simple passive tag. Our tags probably are about this size and about this thick, like a luggage tag you would get on your, and I think on an individual item basis, just size would prohibit it, and also, depends on the cost. If it's a very high value biologic, then you might attach one of these to it. But I don't think it makes good sense, based on the size and possibly the cost, to actually implement that at the unit level.
And then I just want, this again has to do with the embedding and data question. Early on, or one of your slides, Peter, you referenced an ability to embed the ASN and compare or translate that into PCAS data. Can you just explain that point a little bit more? I wasn't clear what point you were making there.
The point I was making is that you don't, I think one of the questions come up in the pilot about, how do we transfer EPCAS data between disparate connections and things like that. What I was adding in there, that there is an option that if you wanted to embed the ASN or the EDI 856 data within the tag and check it at the manifest level before you did anything else, once you received it, you have the ability to do that.
So that would reduce the need for EDI connections or direct data transfers between trading partners. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Or it would supplement it.
Okay.
I think that's the point.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? That being heard, or no questions from the public, I guess we move forward. Again, thank you for your presentation. And
Thank you for
Jenny,
listening.
contact Jenny if you have any comments you'd like to supply
Yeah,
or provide.
we'll submit something to Virginia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Who's your presentation now?
We have one more, I think. Walter, I think.